Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Carl. I am your host, Carl Zellner. And as always, want to welcome you to another episode. I'm one of the attorneys with Anderson Business Advisors, which many of you who are watching this probably already know. Today, I want to talk a little bit about when should you consider doing document drafting or redrafting your bylaws or your operating agreements if we're talking about LLCs. This comes up most frequently with new clients who maybe have set up, entities prior to coming to Anderson, gone through some of our education courses and are basically concerned that their entity documents are putting them at risk. So, quick answer is your documents should be redrafted if you're concerned that they're putting you at risk. As a major part of my job, especially over the past several years, was reviewing existing operating agreements and bylaws if we're looking at corporations. And many of them are fairly deficient. So if I'm looking at, without using a competitor or an internet version specific name, things like folks got operating agreements online. Usually the operating agreement is fairly substandard, misses a lot of the different high points you want to address in an operating agreement. Length of the operating agreement or bylaws isn't wholly determinative if it's good or bad. So just want to be clear about that. However, usually if you're sitting with an operating agreement that's, 15, 16 pages or less, it's probably going to be a bit deficient for what you want to do. For just a bit of a basic, if this is somebody's first time hearing about this, really your operating agreement or your bylaws is a list of instructions that tell a third party how different conflicts or different issues should be decided. So especially in the case where you're doing joint ventures or working with other parties or making contracts with people, things like that, you should really have a great operating agreement in place for an LLC or great bylaws in place for your corporation. Now, where we see it the most, like I said, tends to be those folks who just, took the advice of whomever and just got something in place because they were under the understanding that having something better in place is better than nothing. Okay. I am here to tell you that is not necessarily the case, especially when you start looking at the wide variety and variation as well in the amount of protection offered state by state. So a lot of these online places, you would get basically the same operating agreement you would get in Washington as you would in Florida, things like this. Now, if it's a good operating agreement, fine. If it's a mediocre substandard operating agreement, the problem is this. Every state I've looked in, at least for, sort of their asset protection rules, the language, and you're more than welcome to check in your own state's statutory language if you're, a glutton for punishment. But basically it says, unless otherwise stated in, and then it usually lists bylaws or operating agreements, this is the rule. So it becomes that much more important that if you're going to have an operating agreement or bylaws, that those rules sort of afford them the maximum amount of protection, not just some mediocre level. Because in other states that have great asset protection laws, you may actually be stepping on your protections by having a subpar operating agreement or bylaws. So one of those things to mention there. So like I said, back to our original subject here, when is doc drafting appropriate for your bylaws or operating agreement? When there's reason to believe that those are substandard or sort of run of the mill, and there's a reason to have those upgraded and make them as basically the height of what they could be. And like I say, a lot of our clients will come in and have us do that for them, especially if it's somebody who's interested in our unlimited LLCs for life package. If that is, we include that document drafting for those existing LLCs or corporations out there too. That way, everything's under the same standard. It makes it a little bit more easy to use. So that's it. Document drafting when it's appropriate, when it needs to be done. If you don't know if it needs to be done, if you're a platinum client, you're more than welcome to submit your operating agreement or bylaws. that you had prior coming to Anderson. We can give them a good overview and let you know if they meet the standard or do not. So other than that, yeah, it's a great place to start. If you have questions about that and are a platinum client, like I said, the service is there for you. We encourage you to use it. We want you to use it. So yeah, if you need to get a hold of an attorney, platinum's the way to do it. So until next time, thank you everyone for joining me for this episode of Coffee with Carl. As always, please keep taking advantage of all of our free content out there. Join us for Tax Tuesday, Infinity Investing, and any of our many classes that are out there that we give away for free, because we put a value on educated clients, because it helps us work with you and helps us speak the same language. So until next time, thanks for joining me for this episode, and we'll catch you on the next go around.